Hey, and welcome to another episode of Exploring Esports. I'm your host, Alex Jebaited. We are going to be diving into more of the fighting game community, and on this week's episode, we will be talking about the Street Fighter community, which is very near and dear to my heart. And we brought on a very awesome guest who's been growing in content creation, been a huge help to the community with Street Fighter 5, and started out in Street Fighter 4. I remember him when he was first playing in tournaments. Welcome to the show, Equinox's Brian F. How are you, man?
Hey, doing very good. Thank you for having me.
Good. You just did actually Capcom Pro Tour finals. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I got the email about that, and I was like, "Wait, really? You want me to talk about Street Fighter for the CPT finals?" So I was super excited to be able to do that. And when I got there and we got into the groove of things, I was doing the analyst test with Ultra David and Rob TV. It was great because they made it super easy for me. David's a pro at this. He handled like the segues and sending it back to the desk and everything. Then Rob's just outlandish. So all I had to do was kind of be like the straight man to Rob, just by contrast of being relatively just low energy and regular. And then Rob just going off about Daigo being LeBron James and all this nonstop. Helped me look funny. So I appreciate that from Rob. And also I just got to talk about Street Fighter, which is, that's what I like to do. So it was a lot of fun. It went pretty well.
Yeah, I remember watching you, and I almost made a Twitter joke about how I want to buy a used car from your outfit. No,
the memes were good.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
The memes were good. Like I got a bunch of tweets like that. The memes were very good. So I feel like that helped me judge. Like if you're a bunch of memes coming out in the FGC Twitter sphere, I feel like that means it's going pretty good.
Yeah, most of my memes have been either the Jebaited or people hate me, but we won't get into that. So tell people a little bit about getting into Street Fighter. I believe Street Fighter has always been your main competitive game. Tell us about like your first tournament memory and that.
Sure. Yeah. Actually, before Street Fighter, I was into like shooters and stuff. So I played Halo 2 and Gears of War, and that's where I discovered like that there was tournaments for video games. But I was too young to really compete or anything. I was just very into it and like getting online on like Halo2forum.com, and I knew about like MLG, what that was. But Street Fighter 4, I just bought on a whim because it was on sale, and I had a $20 Best Buy gift card, and it was $20. And I was like, oh, I remember these guys from when I was like 10 at an arcade, and they had it there. So, I didn't really play fighting games before that besides like mashing here and there. And then I just had a friend from middle school, Brandon, who I was just chatting with him on Facebook one day. And I said I was playing this game, Street Fighter 4. And he's like, oh, I play that game. Like, I really play that game. Like, I go to tournaments here and all over. And I was like, what? So he introduced me to the FGC. Like, he pointed me to like event hubs and stuff like that back then in 2010. And so that's what got me connected to the greater FGC scene. And then basically at that time, I was going to University of Florida. So because I'm from Miami, which is pretty disconnected from a lot of the scenes at that time. There was like the Miami scene, but it wasn't as popping with like tournaments as like Central Florida, you doing all the CEO stuff, and Tampa never sleeps with Tong. So I started going there, and that's where there's a lot of FGC people. And I started just traveling to events and getting started competing that way. And so basically my friend just pointed out these online resources, and I just kind of went hard after that. Had a lot of friends I played with in college. And my first tournament, my first time on stream, it was against you, Jebaited. So I'm sure you don't remember, but I remember like it was my first time ever on stream, and I was pretty nervous. I think
Balrog mirror match, I'll tell you that.
Okay. Yeah, you smoked me. It was bad. It was really bad. And like I remember after the match, like you destroyed me, and then you were like, oh yeah, it's anti-air. You do crouching fierce with Balrog. And I was like, I was like, I know how to do Crouching Fierce and Balrog. I was so salty, but I was just so nervous too. And that was like my first 0-2, and then I just kept practicing from there.
Well, look how it turned out, right? So that's all. And then after that, you got better. I started running too many events, and then I think we played, and it was like a Tampa like restaurant turn. I think you beat me then, and I was just like, okay, all right, I'm either getting rusty or these guys are just getting way better. And that's when things really opened up with the Street Fighter community. And to go back to just picking up Street Fighter 4, that's actually how CEO kind of started. FYE for your entertainment, somebody got me a gift card. I went and bought Capcom versus SNK 2 back in like 2004. Wow. After a few years of no more fighting games and playing like DDR and card games. And then that's kind of what got me back into tournaments and stuff. So, but yeah, Street Fighter 4, for anyone who doesn't know, kind of made FGC what it is again today. It brought the bands back together with the old school guys. So, and then, yeah, we kept going back and forth. And now, literally, as a friend and a colleague, like, so proud of how far you've come. And you've kind of been killing it with content creation. And now looking back, and one of the mistakes I tell myself is like, I should have done more content creation as I built CEO. And now, especially with COVID being stuck at home for a year, I'm starting to do it. But it's like, is it too late? It's never too late. But with you, if you could tell your younger self, besides as a competitor, how to anti-air better, what is like the most biggest lesson you would teach somebody?
Oof. Yeah, I started streaming pretty early relative to a lot of the FGC, like the Street Fighter 4 bubble. Like I started streaming late 2014, 2015, and back then there was not like it is today. You go to Street Fighter 5 on Twitch and you can just scroll and scroll and scroll, and there's like so many people streaming. There was nobody streaming Street Fighter 4 back then, so
yep.
I got on that train pretty early, which I'm happy about. And basically, I kind of like documented. It was like my open diary of like, here's me trying to get good. You know, a lot of other people, they're already good, and then they just kind of flexing on stream. Me, it was like you saw the good, the bad, and the ugly. You know, like it was, you saw my struggles, you saw like the frustration, the salt, like it was all there of me trying to get good. So I'm really proud of like kind of putting that journey out there and getting ahead of the curve on that. But as far as like growth and content creation, I didn't do YouTube seriously until like 2020. I mean, I was doing it here and there. And it was just hard to keep up with, and I learned a lot of editing skills and stuff like that, which is I'm glad I know. But it was more about like, how can I make content that is engaging to newer audiences, larger audiences, and brings people into the scene and can help me grow in these platforms? And that focus wasn't there at the time. It was just me trying to play, go to tournaments, and I kind of regret like not focusing on that sooner. Because I think as a whole, I kind of wish like the FGC was better about this, because I think we have the power to help bring new people into the FGC with these platforms.
Yep.
And we're all in the Twitch and Twitter bubble. And I think YouTube is like the silent majority. Like there's so many more people, orders of magnitude more people on YouTube than on Twitch and Twitter. And there's no discoverability on Twitch or Twitter either. So, you know, Vita games, I think they're an untapped genre really in the gaming space. And which is sad for, it's like the oldest competitive genre still around right now. And so I kind of wish I got started on YouTube sooner with that sort of mindset of like streaming for YouTube growth, to be able to bring more people in and kind of have that competitor and content creator balance earlier. That's the one thing I would have done different.
Yeah, I've been doing YouTube unboxings and I'm getting all this viewership, and you look at the stats, it's like just algorithms and random searches or not our usual subscribers or Twitter or Twitch. So you know, it's definitely been a hot topic, but I've seen a lot of people successfully go to YouTube, but I think all of them kind of help each other. My favorite thing, you know, to compliment you is when you did a V-Shift. Street Fighter 5 just had a recent update, and they added a new mechanic in the game called V-Shift, where you basically hold medium kick and heavy punch, and you got to be in neutral, meaning staying still. You can't hold a direction, and it gets you out of trouble. Dude, you've pretty much created something which I think is the best way to introduce any kind of new thing into a fighting game, is the note taking live on stream, right? I'm sure other people have done it, but not as memorable as I thought you were doing it, and just going through every nitty gritty of it. And you know, you can find all this information you know, going anywhere and such. And then once you build that kind of following of like, all right, this is what he's going to do the next time, and I'm going to be able to understand it and follow along. What other resource do you think, besides the event hubs, you know, the shurikens back in the day, the forums, Discord, right? Like, what are the most important ways? Or if I was just a new guy trying to get into Street Fighter and this late in the game, where would you send somebody first?
Yeah, it's kind of weird to compare like the resources from like back then and now, because like you said, event hubs is where I started, and I don't really know how well that holds up today. You know, they get clowned on a lot, but I still think they do a service of kind of introducing like gathering content together to introduce to people. So I still think there's some value for like brand new people to the scene. It's going to be fighting game content there. You know, you're going to go, you know, to go to one central place to find stuff about fighting games. So I still think there's a little bit of value in that, but now I feel like it's kind of hard to make the jump, because I called it the FGC Twitter and Twitch bubble. So there's a big bubble there, and I think that's where like the most valuable stuff is, but it's kind of hard to get there. So I think YouTube is still like a really good resource for new players. Just like search out tutorials for the games you're talking about. You'll find people, but once you find them, like go to their Twitter, you know, start following them, follow the players they're interacting with, because a lot of this stuff sort of circulates just in this amorphous Twitterverse And that makes it difficult, I think, for new people to find stuff, which is why I wish more of the SGC focused on YouTube. But actually, there's a ton of content creators that are separate from that bubble, which I think fill that demand. And I think a lot of like the people who are hardcore competitive players, they don't really know about that side of YouTube. Like I've had to investigate that. Like NRS and DBFZ has massive YouTubers, massive, and I didn't know about them. And I was like, wait, who are these people? Like they play fighting games and they have huge audiences and they do all fighting game stuff. And so I think there's a big disconnect there. So I still think YouTube is a great place to go. Once you get more into that, start getting onto Twitter and following like your favorite players. If you're trying to learn a game or something, like follow the good players and look at their Twitch. Get onto Twitch. Like after that point, go to the Twitch category and click around. Like that's the thing is like there's so many people streaming now. It can be hard to find good players. And if you want to just learn, for example, the top player, the top person in the category is probably not necessarily the best player. Like they might be good, but that's not what drives views. It's not a one-to-one thing like it used to be. Some of the best players that I know, people that beat me in tournament, I'm streaming and I have more viewers than the guy who just beat my ass, right? Like you can just scroll down and see they're there streaming, and people will be like, "Oh, does this guy stream?" Yeah, just go to the section. Look at the game section. Scroll down, they're there. Like you can find these players. So try to find your way from YouTube, I think, into the Twitch and Twitterverse. I wish it was more streamlined. I don't think it is. I think you kind of have to be in the know. But once you start doing that, you can start following your favorite players and learn a lot just by watching them play.
Yeah, and it's funny because YouTube are all the highlights and videos and tutorials, but nobody's really like streaming directly like they do on Twitch. So, which I've noticed. But yeah, Street Fighter 4, I got good, or I learned watching all the Daigo videos the first year that game ever came out. So yeah, the growth you've done through YouTube and stuff. Now looking back, right? Besides, I hate to say this, but like losing to me probably inspired you to get better and go, I hate that guy, I'm gonna beat him one day, which is what kind of drove my passion. And every time I lost at like a bar fights, I would be like, I'm not losing that guy again. And somehow I'd power through the first couple years until we all started teaching Knuckle Duo, world champion, Capcom Pro Tour, CJ Truth. And once they started getting good, I'm like, all right, my time's at an end. And it's the younger generation. Over the years since you started back in 2010, what has been your personal favorite achievement? And I'll never forget how well you did at Combo Breaker that one year in Street Fighter. It was 5, wasn't it? And then what's your favorite storyline or someone else achieving something in the FGC?
Yeah, I guess for my own personal competition, it had to be Combo Breaker. Like I have like 2 premier top 8s under my belt. It's Combo Breaker 2017 and Final Round 2019. And so I'm proud of both those, but the Combo Breaker one is like really special to me just because Combo Breaker is just sick, like there's the stage, like they do such a good job of making you feel connected and appreciated as a player, and like it's something to celebrate. And I got a medal. I got a medal on my desk right over here. But final round, I didn't really get that. I don't have a medal to take home from I think I finished 5th place. So definitely from Combo Breaker, just like the memories I have from that being my first like real like super major, almost like top 8 finish like that. Taking out I forget his name, Sako. I double jeopardied Sako. There was an all-American top 8 besides Sako, and then I beat him in winners and losers, so that was sick. And it was just a really good time. And then all the haters that came out after that with all the ball rec hate, like it was just ridiculous. It was just a ridiculous moment, and I was like, wow, that was amazing. So I'll never forget that. Awesome. Definitely near and dear to my heart. But for other FGC storylines, there's so many, and I think that's what makes the FGC so interesting to follow. But like one personal favorite that comes off the top of my head is just like the KBRF Champ Saga. It's not as prestigious of a competitive.
Marvel 3. Yep.
Right, in Marvel 3. It's not as big of a competitive, prestigious moment. It's just like gets down to like the personal kind of way fighting games are. Like fighting games are very personal. And then that whole saga of like F Champ kind of dissing on KBR after he won Evo. People were saying, oh, he's not a real champion. He won with a scrubby team. It's not the right way to play the game. And then the night before the tournament, they had an exhibition. F Champ destroyed him in a 1st to 10, and he made it clear how he felt about KBR and that exhibition. He was not shy about it. And then KBR was just cold, no emotion the whole way through. And then in the tournament, destroyed F Champ in grand finals. I mean, it was such a beatdown. And after all the talk, after all of the insults and everything, KBR just turned to F Champ and said, "Shake my hand." no words. Like that was just the sweetest moment of like someone getting their just desserts, you know?
Yeah.
And I thought that was just so awesome. So it's just one of those stories that sticks out to me. And I think you can't really recreate that in other esports, like, and without games with that one-on-one sort of aspect. And that's why I love fighting games.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I've been playing them for over 30 years now. Just Marvel is probably one of the most passionate storylines in the rivalries, and then Street Fighter 4, and then 5, you know, to talk about, like, there's so many different storylines and all that. But thankfully, with Capcom Fighters and Pro Tour, like, it's easier to follow the storyline of rankings and all that once all the developers got involved. And then Tekken World Tour has grown over the years. So last major question for you, you know, COVID's obviously sidelined us. We're about to go on a second year of, you know, losing a lot of our favorite events to come together. Fortunately, online is alive and well. I think the Street Fighter 5 update for, you know, you and I that love Street Fighter 5 are having so much fun discovering and enjoying it. When events do come back and once the scene is back to its prime and how it's, you know, what makes it so special, is there anything you would change about it? And not so much like personalities or people, but anything to make it better from a tournament sense or, you know, just event sense?
Yeah, I think one thing that the community on many levels I would like to see more focus on is just making it more fun. And I think there's a few crazy people who are just like dedicated to being the best, and it's awesome that we have these super competitive environments to kind of foster that. But I think we need to remember that they're video games, and video games need to be fun, and that events, I'm calling them events, not tournaments, right? Tournaments are at the event. It needs to be an event, and it needs to be a celebration of the community and the games themselves, and offer things to bring people who maybe just want to, like, you know, get their feet wet, dip their toes in the water and see what it's all about. Like that needs to be a focus because we need new players. We need people, this scene to grow. And that's one thing that I would just want everyone to focus on. I want new players. I want the younger generation to come in and enjoy fighting games. And on every level, like tournaments, content creation, the games themselves. Like, I just wish there was this focus on expanding the player base and making things more fun. And I'm not talking about making games easier or anything. People always kind of immediately jump on that. Make them add some fun modes, you know, make sure the netcode is good or else we can't play them, right? But maybe have a silly mode. Right. Add it, like, Smash has items, right? You can do a Street Fighter with items. You can Tekken add
no.
Like,
cross
random
Tekken
projectiles.
gems? No, thank you.
No, I don't mean in competitive modes. You get what I'm saying, right? Right. Add fun modes for the 10-year-olds to play, right? And then they'll grow up and they'll play fighting games, right? I just wish there was more focus on bringing people in and making things fun for, like, you know, what is it? 25% of the tournament goes 0-2, right? They need something to do. And we need to retain those people, and eventually a small percentage of them will be like the next generation competitive players, the new Knuckle Dude, the new CJ Truth, right? So I just want to see that continue to be a focus and more of a focus so that we can keep growing the community.
So kind of like the fun stuff like we've done, like the Street Fighter Royal Rumble and the, you know, on a grander scale, it's the exact idea. We're on the same page of just I host tournaments because video games are supposed to be fun. And then, you know, there's the 2% that are there to focus. But as good organizers, you need to make sure everyone's having a great time. The parents are getting involved. And it kind of depends on which games. Like Smash will obviously have more parents involved, while Street Fighter and the Mortal Kombats are the older generation. But it just, to get more people involved, we used to do locals. I don't know if you were ever at one of the ones in Florida. We would call it like a salty run bracket. So everyone who was 0-2 could enter another tournament. And like at the time, it was like a 40-man regular tournament. And what had happened was, this is when CJ Truth was starting to get really good. And it was me and him were like in the finals at all these little Orlando locals. But we did an 0-2 like run bracket, run back. And the two finalists, I can't remember who they were people that would always go 0-2, but their finals were more hype and more fun for people to watch than me and CJ in the finals. So definitely something, you know, to be more engaging. And now it's so easy to get into fighting games. I think, you know, you get a console, you get a fight stick. There's so many available online. And luckily, you know, as an organizer, PlayStation 4 to 5 seems like a very easy transition compared to what, you know, going from Street Fighter, you know, PlayStation 3 to 4. So, but yeah, no, Brian, awesome to have you on, man. I'm really happy for your success. The best takeaway that we can tell people is, you know, content creation, just everything's out there once you find what you're interested in. Where can people watch you in general?
On Twitch and YouTube, I'm at Brian_F, BRIAN_F. On Twitter, it's BRI4NF. I think if you search Brian F, you should still find me. But yeah, I'm pretty much on those platforms. I stream every weekday around like 6 p.m. Central, and multiple uploads to YouTube weekly. So lots of fighting game content, lots of Street Fighter 5 stuff going out there. So if you're interested, check it out.
Awesome. Random bonus question. This is something that I always ask people, or I should start asking people. You use your name as your gamer tag, basically. I use my name as my gamer tag, right? Did you ever have a gamer tag you want to use, or are you just stuck with Brian F and just stuck to it?
Back in the Halo days, I had a gamer tag that it's very cringy. I think it was like one of those auto-generated things. It was like Death789, literally just Death789. So I think you can even look up my Halo 2 match history before Bungie deletes that forever. That was like my old gaming alias, and you can tell I'm just not good at making up creative names. So yeah. I gave up when Street Fighter came around. I didn't have to make up a name until going to your tournaments, man. You're like, what's your tag? And I'm like,
Brian, first letter, last name, yeah.
Yep, that's how it worked. And I added the underscore for a little bit of spice.
Yeah, that's about it. Or Brian F without it was taken, right? No.
Right.
Well, Brian, congrats on everything, man. Capcom Pro Tour. I hope to see you doing more casting, but also as a Balrog main as well, man. I'm excited for what the future holds with 5, and then hopefully whatever's next. So, Brian, thank you so much for coming on, and that was another episode of speaking to esports experts, mostly the Street Fighter community. Thank you, guys.